Thank you so much, Heini, and great to be here with you today. I'm, of course, very, very happy to talk about Neste today, but I would actually like to start with giving you 4 buzzwords for my presentation. Those key words that you will be hearing, and you have already heard quite many times mentioned today, are, first of all, change. Secondly, transformation. Third, growth. And 4th, sustainability. And they are not in the order of importance. They are all very, very important. So there was a question about superpowers, and I, had a chance to quickly look at them. And one which got quite many votes was the ability to always ask why. And that's a very important question. So I'm asking now myself, why these 4 words? Change. First of all, the pace of change today is very fast. We all know that the world is moving fast. We probably feel that we've never experienced the pace of change as fast as it is today. Then again, from another angle or from another perspective, the change might never be as slow again as it is today. Secondly, the word transformation. The transformation is the only way companies can keep up with the speed of change. And I'm going to be talking about transformation, which sometimes can be very fast, but usually if it comes to big corporation, it will take some time. And that's why it is really important to recognize the moment in time when transformation needs to take place. And quite often, actually, and I'm going to give you one more keyword at the end of the presentation, one needs to recognize that one needs to move before you are asked to move or before you are forced to move. And that's super important, because the trap of ease of enjoying your success or enjoying things as they are can be very tempting, and it can be a really big trap of complacency for any company. And then third, the growth. Choose your game. I'm going to be saying a couple of words about that as well. In order to grow, you need to know in which game you are playing. And then 4th, ride on a mega trend. Sustainability today is definitely what I think all companies need to take seriously. You need to consider, how do you make your own operations more sustainable, but at the same time, you might be the company that is actually there to solve some of the sustainability challenges that we have as a society today. And then that makes your operations very, very powerful. Now, moving on in the presentation, if I can get the next slide, I would like to actually put all of this into the context of Neste. And I'd like to start with an article that was published in Harvard Business Review about, I think, 2 years ago, where, of course, the article is backed by, wonderful research done by some of the brilliant minds at Harvard. And this tells you the story of transformation. And I really very much like the quote in the article, which says that in an era of relentless change, a company survives and thrives based not on its size or performance at any given time, but really on its ability to reposition itself to create a new future. And that's what transformation is all about. And for Neste, we started the transformation and developing from local oil refinery into a world leader in renewable and sustainable solutions. That has been a long journey, over a decade. But then during that journey, there comes a moment when you realize that, okay, we're not an oil refinery anymore. So what are we really? And then you have to redefine yourself. And it might be something completely new. It might be an industry that doesn't exist yet. It might be something where the outside world sees you differently than what you see yourself doing. And then it's really important also that your brand and your communications and your company culture follow along on that transformation journey. So that's super important, to get everybody along on that journey. And of course, change is all about communications, and it is so important to talk about it. And I hope that me sharing our transformation story today will also maybe give you some ideas on what can be done and what is important in going through this change. So if you have 2 minutes, let's take a quick look at a video.
Change. Change.
Reusing what we have can change the world.
Now is the time to change. Change.
Creating something new out of something old can revolutionize the way we live. It's only natural to change things for the better. We need to create a healthier planet for future generations. And we have to make sure that the things that we create last longer and reuse them once we're done with them. Change can only be positive if it is sustainable.
Now is the time to change.
Change can't be stopped. Change is an opportunity. Change is full of potential. Change runs on renewables.
Change runs on renewables. That's our new brand promise that we launched a year and a half ago, not a bit over a year ago. And one thing I want to mention about this video is that it's made of completely recycled elements. All the visuals that you saw, all the sounds that you heard have been used before. We put the video together during the pandemic when we were not able to film anything, and we thought, why not live according to our values here as well, and use something that has already been used and make it into something new, which we believe creates new value. Our purpose as a company is to create a healthier planet for our children. It is a big statement, and I think it's an emotional statement when we talk about what do we want to do in order to sort of save the world. It's a big mission. But to be honest, it really very well, I think, describes the intergenerational nature of sustainability in general. What we need to really be aware of is that sustainability is all about passing on the ability for the next generations to live well on this planet, which is now facing the planetary boundaries and which is facing all these restrictions, whether it's the climate crisis, whether it's water scarcity, whether it's biodiversity loss. So we need to do everything we can in the business community also to mitigate that impact that we are having on this planet. So moving forward, couple of words on our strategy. Can I have the next slide, please? Our strategy is based on 3 key words: faster, bolder, and together. And I think you've already have an idea of fast. I've been talking about the pace of change. Bold, being courageous to start the transformation even already before you're forced to do it. And together, which is all that EEX is, of course, all about: collaboration. And none of these changes can be done alone. No company in this world can solve some of the planetary challenges that we have. So collaboration is really the key to many of the aspects when it comes to sustainable transformation. If we move forward, I'm not going into the details of the strategy, but really trying to crystallize what it means. We want to be a global leader in renewable and circular solutions. And this has been our sort of guiding principle for the past years. So if we move on, what does it mean in practice? Looking at the world around us, it's really, of course, the climate crisis that has made all of this very, very visible for us. We need to act, and we need to act fast. Time is running out. Because of this, of course, many governments have already put in place quite tight regulatory frameworks with ambition levels, which the whole society needs to meet. And this also is an external booster for businesses to perform better on sustainability. There is also demand, which is not based on regulatory demand, but actually a voluntary market for renewable products today. Consumers want it, businesses want it, and people generally have recognized that this is area where they can themselves make an impact by making the choices that they feel are the sustainable choices. And the intensifying societal pressure in general. There is, of course, a lot of discussion going on what is the role of companies in the society, whether we should be completely rethinking the way in which we govern, in which we collaborate, in way our democracy works, and what is the role of companies in all of that. And I think most companies today feel that pressure and want to be contributors rather than adapters in this equation. Now, today, Neste's renewable businesses contribute 94% to our profits. So if we look at the key areas where we work today, renewable road transportation is one. And I'm sure that all of you are very much aware of this major shift that is going on now to electrify transport, and we are fully behind it. We think it's really important because perhaps maybe 1/4 of world's GHG emissions are coming from transport in different forms. However, the pace of electrification is not fast enough to meet all the targets that we have set for ourselves. We need all the solutions that are available today. Renewable diesel can reduce GHG emissions up to 90%. It's not 100%. It's not a perfect solution, but it's available today. And if we take it into use, it has a huge impact. It's the same when we think about different modes of transport. It is completely different story to electrify mobility in cities, in your private cars. When you think about heavy duty traffic, trucks that need to take the long haul, carry heavy machinery, for instance, then usually diesel is still the only viable option. It's also, of course, the question of electricity in general. The availability of green electricity might become an issue when all the sectors are electrifying their operations at the same time. So it's not only traffic, but it's also industries and so on and so forth. So if we then again think about the impact and the end game, the end goal, which is to reduce the emissions. Of course, if we have electricity, which is produced with fossil fuels, that doesn't really solve the problem. The second part, which is really hard to decarbonize in mobility, is aviation. It will be quite a long time before we have airplanes that will run on electricity or hydrogen. And therefore, one solution, which is again available already today, is sustainable aviation fuel. These renewable fuels that we have today are made more than 90% of wastes and residues. So we're really reusing something that others have found invaluable. So we are taking what others see as waste or residues in some processes, and we are turning it into something valuable, which at the same time helps reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The third sector where we are operating is renewable polymers and chemicals. And this is a super important business, which we believe will be growing quite a bit in the coming years. We're piloting in chemical recycling, and we already have a lot of proof points on the fact that this might actually then be one of the, or if not the best solution to the waste plastic challenge that we have as a globe. Because most of the plastic that has been in use, and we know that plastic is a very good material for many things, most of it can be recycled and turned into molecules and actually be used over and over again. Recollection is, of course, always the issue, and we're working there again to create the ecosystem and the collaboration between different players to make that part of the equation to work as well. If I'm then looking at the scaling up faster and bolder part, I'm having some issues with the clicker here, but I hope we are now having the right slide. So scaling up faster and bolder, like I said, we're broadening our markets from the traditional road transportation to aviation and polymers and chemicals, also to marine, so low sulfur bunker fuels as well. Maybe that sector is a little bit behind the road traffic and aviation, but moving very fast as well. Secondly, developing the technologies. We're constantly developing new technologies. About 25% of our personnel work on innovation and R&D. So it's a very big investment from us. And then fourth, strengthening the raw material platform globally, which means that we are expanding into new raw materials, new types of waste, new types of residues, also geographically expanding the platform of those raw materials. So I talked about innovation already. And I don't know why this is moving. There's one slide missing from between. Okay, it's gone. This is interesting. I don't know what happened, but anyway, what was on the slide and what I'm going to explain to you without the slide now, let's see how that goes, is that where we are expanding in innovation is really, first of all, linear cellulosics is something which is sort of near to mid-term. And I know that there are other companies working on this as well. We believe that it's going to be one of the solutions. Maybe in the second wave of innovation, we come to raw materials such as algae and municipal solid waste, which are also raw materials that we are currently very much researching on, and we have projects ongoing on how do we turn that type of raw materials into valuable products. And then maybe the third wave will come a little bit later because it still takes a little bit more time, would be renewable hydrogen and power-to-X solutions. So I think the point that I'm making here about the different timeframes is also the fact that technology is developing all the time, but it will take time. So in the meantime, before we are in the perfect world where we have solutions with zero emissions, we have lots of other means to have significant impact in reducing emissions. We just need to take them into use, scale them up, and have the availability globally. I promised in the end that I would put this into context of sort of wider context, and I promised you one more keyword, and that keyword is preemptive transformation. And I think the test what characterizes a successor or a survivor, a company that is able to make a sustainable transformation and grow, is really defined by the ability to move before you have to. And that's why preemptive transformation for me is maybe the crystallization of what needs to happen in companies that remain agile and are able to avoid the trap of complacency, which I was talking about. And then the second point about choosing your game. And I see three options here. If you want to be externally driven as a company, and this is very much, of course, also about the entrepreneurship within a company, or whether you're a startup, you need to choose the game you play in. You can be winning and you can be a very successful company in a defined game, or you can choose to redefine the rules of the game. And the third option really is to create a new game. And I think in the case of Neste, we are probably most in the game here in the middle, redefining the rules of the game. Traditionally, oil and gas companies have been looked at as, these giants of the past with absolutely no future and soon with stranded assets. The fact is that if we want to keep the society running, we need to have options. And if it's not fossil fuels, it needs to be something else. And this is where we have been redefining the rules of the game. And then there's a bit of part of the creating the new game as well. And that is really the voluntary market. And I want to say two things about that. If you think about the needs of any company today who is considering its own footprint and its own handprint, which is the impact that you can make by selling your products. If you think about, there are a lot of companies who find it very difficult to reduce their own footprint if there is no technology available for the actual production process. But there are still other means. And I'm now thinking of, for instance, take a consultancy company. They usually want to have very ambitious targets. And I actually mentioned one here, BCG, because they are a customer of ours, so it's an easy example. What do? They have these consultants flying around. Well, less during the past 18 months, but again, starting to fly and meet customers. How can they reduce their own footprint? By flying with sustainable aviation fuel, not compensating, but actually reducing the emissions that happen when their people fly to meet the customers. So this is a voluntary market that is developing, and it's a way in which we can help them to reduce their footprint and for us to reduce our handprint. So, or actually increase our handprint. So I think that's the important point about thinking about what is the game that you play in, and then make full use of it. Scale up faster, bolder, use it and do it together in collaboration with others. Now, I'm not talking about our sustainability targets today, or the what we are doing on climate, and I think that would be a possibility for a completely different and another story, and I would of course love to tell that story as well. But I'll leave that for another occasion, and I would be happy to talk more about it if anybody's interested to listen to that story. So thank you very much for your patience today with me hassling with the slides. I hope you got the key message across. Thank you so much.